Trust the process. An oxymoron incarnate. He's the process, yet probably the ultimate culmination of all the great bigs. The fundamental post moves of Hakeem, the shooting of Dirk, and the size of Shaq. And just last season, he showed that he can charade and pass like JOKIC for some stretches. The process is yet the product of everything the Sixers did in the prior years. For someone who has one of the most encapsulating monikers, he has an ever-evolving and confusing legacy. So how about I give you some options? Let's start with the miracle. I mean, think about it. His draft comparisons were crazy and his ceiling is higher than Anthony Davis and the likes of Hakeem. What's crazier? All those projections warranted and in retrospect, actually true. You probably know the story by now, but it's worth revisiting. Joel Embiid didn't start playing basketball until he was 15, and right around that time, a mentor gave him a videotape of Hakeem Olajuwon. It's one thing to watch, study, process, and then try on the courts, but to actually execute with the grace, balance, and dexterity of Hakeem? Add in the fact that he had to come back from an injury that ended the career of another dominant center, Yao Ming, and has the footwork of a ballerina is mind-melting. Philadelphia has the most brute force in the league, an unstoppable scoring machine in every sense of the word. Yes, I mean there is no defender that can stop this guy. A beast who can score at will. Actually, being a beast of a matchup doesn't even give justice to how pitiful he makes his opponents look. He'll make you think one thing, then do something else, and keep you guessing. He'll make you commit and then overcommit, with jab steps and then a spin, a fake here, and then another combo of fakes here. It's been a few years, but I still can't brush off how he dream shake Julius Randle to oblivion. Even if we're not even including how he flops and yells at the refs, he will wear defenders down for just how unrelenting he is on offense, on elbows, on the block, and on his best nights, it might just be from anywhere on the court. His presence on the court demands the best from his opponents, and even that might still not be enough. All the great centers can only dream of his three-point shooting and accuracy on the line. Even if we go back a bit with his offensive arsenal, you'd be pressed to look for a big man who has a hang dribble smooth enough to freeze a defender because he can easily make a pass to a cutter or just pull up for an easy 16-footer. Dirk Nowitzki or even Chris Bosh might come to mind with how effective they were in the perimeter, but they never had JoJo's deadly face-up and fast break game. And that's mainly because he doesn't actually play like a big. Look closely and you'll realize that he's operating more like Paul George or Kevin Durant or Jason Tatum. He's attacking more like a wing. He doesn't hunt a mismatch nor create a mismatch. He is the mismatch. He is basically dominance in the flesh. When all that tap dancing fails, he will stop finding holes in the defense and just pulverize whatever scheme you put in front of him. Zion and Giannis, in theory, might be very brutal to defend in terms of how physically demanding they are on a possession-to-possession basis. But Joel Embiid is just as vicious of a force, if not much more. Averaging north of 30 points the past 3 seasons and never had a season where he averaged less than 20 points. For the past 7 seasons, he grabbed more than 10 boards and averaged more than a block per game. Joel Embiid has looked every bit as dominant in numbers and in how he ragdolls every wannabes as Shaq, Hakeem, Moses, and Kareem. You probably heard of them. Yet, with all that, probably the strongest aspect about him as a player, especially a player on the Philadelphia 76ers all these years, is how he survived all the turmoil. This leads me to the third moniker I want to suggest, the Survivor. We can't have a deep dive into Joel Embiid's career without talking about how he survived and even thrived in some stretches, despite the dreadful situations he was in and even the purgatory he had to live with. You can argue that the process was an advantage for him at that time. At least he had 2 seasons to rehab his lower body. Yes, probably, but being in an environment that prioritizes collecting assets rather than winning games? A revolving door of teammates who are certainly getting traded? Though there is no perfect time for injury, how about the untimely injuries almost every year for his co-stars? Add to that 6 heads of basketball operations over his career and superstar point guards demanding a trade. How about overpaying Al Horford when no other teams were competing to sign him for the same amount? Overpaying for Tobias Harris ultimately shut down any chance of signing Jimmy Butler. Yes, he lived through all that, but since I've posted several questions, let's consider another nickname, the what if. I know you can basically post several what ifs to a number of superstars, but stick with me for a little bit here and try to think of any other superstar who had as many fork-in-the-road moments that could have changed the trajectory of his career, and even the NBA. We can go all the way back to 2014 and ponder, what if Joel Embiid hadn't gotten injured days before the draft night? Would he have been the #1 pick? And instead of trading him for Kevin Love, unlike Andrew Wiggins, the Cavs would have kept him, and he and LeBron would have changed the entire 2010s landscape. You can even have the similar what if the Bucks balled up and picked him with their second pick. Just imagine how he and Giannis would have dominated the East. If Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons scared the NBA for a bit in the second half of the 2010s, can you just imagine the horror he and Giannis would have been? How about if the Sixers drafted better? What if they drafted Kristaps Porzingis instead of Jahlil Okafor? Jason Tatum instead of Markelle Fultz? I can even say Pascal Siakam and DeJounte Murray instead of Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot and Furkan Korkmaz. Or what if the Sixers just had better basketball brains and just kept Jimmy and traded Simmons for assets? And then, of course, what if Kawhi missed that shot? And instead of a crying Joel Embiid, we would have seen a battle of the Titans in Giannis and Joel. A finals appearance for him and the Sixers is inconceivable, right? Though obviously not at the level of 2019 Kawhi. They have Jimmy Butler, who is as solid as they come, as a wing to say the least. They have the infrastructure to build the wall to stop Giannis. Anyway, let me jump to my final nickname, the Big Roller Coaster. What do you think? Is there a better thing that encapsulates the experience of Joel Embiid? The highs are as high as they come, but the lows are really devastating. Take, for example, the highs of 2018. Just in the first season of him and Ben Simmons together, went straight to the second round of the playoffs. The highlights he put in his first season. How about the professional wrestler-like celebrations? Heck, even in their defeat against the Raptors 2019, if you were so high on him, you would see a warrior just getting his battle scars in those tears. But the lows are also as heart-wrenching as they come. Every second-round exit, every loss in the hands of the Celtics, every injury, every criticism about his weight, every missed game, they're just so unfortunate. Especially these past recent events, as Joel warranted the suspension for an altercation with Marcus Hayes. Though Marcus Hayes, the journalist, did go too far by making comments about Embiid's son and late brother. That said, it's already looking like a year from hell. He already said that he may not play back-to-back for the rest of his career. Add to that the Maxey injury, the team's gruesome record to start the season, extended missed time to gel in, and the feeling that these injuries for Philly's trio might just get worse. And it really starts to get doomy. Joel Embiid, even with this rocky start, can be averaging 35, 12, and 5 for all we know. They can even be in the finals in June, giving his improvement last year with flashes of a playmaking hub for his team and new layers of how he attacks defenses. Add to that Maxey, who's, even with this start, might still make a jump to superstardom. Paul George, even with all his flaws, has all the tools to be the ideal third star. And given how even the field is, winning it all is still a possibility. It's been a decade since he was drafted, and not only did he not make the Eastern Conference Finals once, but until now we're still waiting for his version of that dominant playoff run all the greats had in their careers. He's now 30 years old, and we all know that basketball is not that kind to big men. Joel already played on a recently operated MCL, played on a recently rehabbed PCL, played with broken hand ligaments, with broken orbital bones in his face, and even with Bell's palsy. But maybe more burdensome is that he is still going through. How will he be remembered? What are your thoughts on Joel Embiid's career so far? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and consider subscribing. Thanks for tuning in.